Normally, according to the traditional method, we begin with specific persons. We begin with oneself, then a dear but respected person, like a teacher or benefactor, then a close person, like a close friend, then a neutral or indifferent person, then a hostile person. And as one practices, one has to be able to develop loving kindness towards all of these people, ideally with the same intensity. Then after one succeeds in developing loving kindness to all of these persons, then one can move on to extend the loving kindness, to expand it. This is done by using wider and wider geographical regions. For example, if I'm practicing here in this hall with all of you, then I will meditate. May all of the people in this hall be well and happy. May they all be peaceful, all be healthy. Then I will go on, I might go on to take everybody who's in Zhuangyan Monastery. Same wish. Then to have a large group, I could take everybody in New York City. Then I might take everybody in North America. Then I will go through the continents, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, until I'm extending loving kindness to the whole world. Then I will take the directions until I'm able to pervade the whole world with the mind of loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, and without ill will. I'm going to start experiencing a little ill will in a moment. Okay, then this is done the same with compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity. So each one has its own specific differences in the method, but I won't go into the differences in method right here. Okay, so now the practice of the 4 Brahma-viharas in this way brings the attainment of a deep level of samadhi. But now, based on this samadhi, the Buddha is going to show how the meditator will develop wisdom or insight in order to gain liberation, the 4th and final stage of realization. So he says, he understands, it's rather cryptic, this formula. He understands thus, there is this. He understands thus, there is the inferior, or what is low. There is the superior, what is excellent. And beyond, there is an escape from this whole field of perception. Okay, what is being stated here, though it's a bit obscure, is the 4 Noble Truths. So he understands thus, there is this. The word this is referring to the 5 aggregates. Now what the meditator does after, say, attaining the samadhi based on loving kindness, he'll withdraw from the samadhi and then look back reflectively upon this mind that has been in the samadhi of loving kindness. And he'll see, in that mind of loving kindness, or in that state of loving kindness, there is the physical body present. that is the aggregate of material form. In the state of samadhi, there is a particular feeling, there is a particular perception, there are particular mental formations or volitions, and there is consciousness. So in this way, the meditator has taken that experience of samadhi and dissected it in terms of the 5 aggregates. And then he sees that these 5 aggregates are impermanent. They were in one condition in the state of samadhi. When he comes out of the samadhi, they're in a different condition. And he looks upon the 5 aggregates as being subject to constant arising and passing away. In other words, they're impermanent. And because they're impermanent, they are unsatisfactory, or dukkha. And because they're impermanent and bound up with dukkha, with suffering, they should not be taken to be I and mine, to be a self. So in other words, he's seeing the 5 aggregates that were involved in the experience of samadhi as being impermanent, bound up with dukkha, with suffering, and as being non-self. So he's gaining insight into the 3 characteristics of the 5 aggregates. And this brings one to the understanding of the noble truth of suffering. Then he investigates these 5 aggregates in terms of their origination. And he sees that these 5 aggregates originate from craving, or from craving and ignorance. And so that is what is meant by there is the inferior. The Pali word is hinam, what is low, what is defective or inferior. And so this is the craving, ignorance, and other defilements that from life to life bring the 5 aggregates into being. Then there is the superior. The Pali word here is panita, what is excellent or sublime. And this I take to be a reference to the 3rd noble truth, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, or nibbana. And then the text says, beyond there is an escape from the whole field of perception. So this I take to be the reference to the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the way that leads out from everything bound up with perception, ideation, conceptualization. So in this way, the disciple is gaining realization of the 4 noble truths. And then the text continues in the standard way, when he knows and sees thus, his mind is liberated from the taint, that's the asava of sensual desire, from the taint of being or craving from existence, and from the taint of ignorance. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge, it's liberated. He understands birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There is no coming back to any state of being. Okay, so this passage shows through this knowledge or insight into the 4 noble truths, the mind is liberated from the asavas, and one achieves the 4th and final stage of enlightenment, the stage of arhatship. And then the Buddha says, he adds one sentence here that is not typical of this kind of passage. And the commentary explains the reason why the Buddha added that sentence. In the audience, he saw a Brahmin who believed that purification is to be achieved through ritualistic bathing. This was the common belief of the Brahmins, that the way to purify oneself of one's defilements and bad karma from the past is to go to these sacred rivers and bathe. Even the Hindus today often believe that to purify oneself, one has to go before one dies to the river Ganges and bathe in the river Ganges, and the water from the Ganges will clean off all of one's sins and bad karma from the past. So the Buddha knew that if he uttered the statement, the Brahmin will come forward and engage him in a conversation, and then the Buddha would answer him in the appropriate way, and the Brahmin would gain faith in the Buddha, ask to become a monk, and then practice and achieve arhatship. Okay, so the Buddha said, this monk is called one who is bathed with the inner bathing. But when he said this, the Brahmin thought, what is the Buddha speaking about? Doesn't he go to the famous holy rivers for bathing? And so the Brahmin asked this, and then the Buddha says, what is the point of going to the Bahuka river? What can the Bahuka river do? Actually, the name Bahuka River means the river of many, probably because many people went there to bathe. So then the Brahmin explains, the Bahuka River is held by many to give liberation. It is held by many to give merit, and many wash away their bad karma, their evil actions in the Bahuka River. Okay, then when the Brahmin said that, then the Buddha replied to him using in verses. He says, what is the point of going to these holy rivers? A foolish person might go there and bathe forever, but that's not going to purify his bad karma. But one pure in heart has evermore the feast of spring, the holy day, one fair in action, one pure in heart, brings his virtue to perfection. It is here, O Brahmin, that you should bathe to make yourself a refuge for all beings. If you speak no falsehood, harm no living beings, take not what is not offered, and with faith and free from avarice, what need for you to go to Gaya? Gaya was a place of pilgrimage with a holy river. For any well will be your Gaya. Okay, then when the Buddha said this, the Brahmin expressed his appreciation. He took refuge in the 3 jewels, and then he went forth under the Buddha, became a monk, and went alone to practice, into solitude to practice, and then he achieved the final goal of the holy life, the achievement of arhatship, and then he directly knew birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more coming back to any state of being. And he became one of the arhats. Okay, that is the end of the sutta. I think I'll have to go now to take the lunch. And so if you have any questions, we're going to have a discussion period right after lunch, at about 12 o'clock, a few minutes after 12. So please just hold your questions and come back for the discussion period. If you wish, you can go to take lunch as well. Just for the next class, next week there will be a retreat going on, so we won't have a class next week, but we'll have the next class on January 2nd. Is that all right? Because it's right after the New Year. I don't know if people go on extended New Year vacations. Does anybody have trouble with that date? Okay, it seems to be okay, so we'll have it for the next class, January 2nd. And that day I'll take Sutta number 8 of the Majjhima Nikaya. With this we go from 16 mental defilements to 44 types of corruptions of body, speech, and mind. Okay, we'll end with the sharing of the merits. Okay, to share the merits of listening to Dhamma, speaking on Dhamma, with the Devas, the Buddhas, the fierce spirits, and with all beings. Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Sasanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Desanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Mam Param Eta Vatacham Hehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Devanumodantu Sabbe Bhutanumodantu Sabbe Satanumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Okay, since many of you I won't see until the beginning of the next year, let me wish you all a happy holiday season and a happy and healthy New Year. Okay, we'll end with the 3 half